audio so I can be recorded. Shall I start again?
That's okay.
We'll just assume that that's fine. We'll go back. The AI revolution is happening on the web. Cut there. The AI revolution is happening on the web. And so this talk was somewhat inspired by the fact that I went on holiday to Spain this winter, which was summer in Spain, which is lovely. It was wonderful. But I am not very good at speaking Spanish. I had to get something to translate this for me. I did do Spanish in school up until the age of 18, but now I am older than that. And so much has been forgotten, and there's not a lot of chance to use it whilst living out here. And I wanted to see, given that AI is creeping its way into the web platform, whether I could build myself a translation application, something to take English to Spanish and Spanish back to English, using just the web platform. I want it to be, available in the browser, available offline. So we're not using external APIs for this, something that entirely happens within the browser. And by the end, hopefully we'll see that that is the case. But what do we need for this? When I want to go and talk to people in Spain and have them talk back to me, I want to be able to do this from voice to voice, speech to speech. So we need speech to text, we need some kind of translation API, and then text to speech back out the other side so that we can hear and talk back and forth to each other. Now, traditionally, what you would do here is perhaps use the web speech API. This is actually an API that's been in browsers for a long time. And then some sort of translation API, probably, there are plenty of those on Google Cloud, for example. And that's what we'd have to build. There is a side to this that, like, it's quite incredible. I love the sort of emergent properties of large language models. And, like, translation is one of them. The fact that we've managed to train on enough data that pushes stuff like in, I think it's the sort of vector space of meaning that pushes all the words and the meanings into the same kind of areas such that LLMs can really translate well. And I will demo this. What I'm there. There. So this is Langflow, and in this I've just built out a very simple flow where we have a chat input, a prompt which tells a model that they are a language translation expert, and they will translate, depending on whether the input is English or Spanish, translate it back to the other one. And so it's going through, in this case, Gemini 2.5 Flash, and then comes out into an output on the other side. And what we can say is, anything we send it to it, it's going to just translate it back, which I think is kind of cool. It is wonderful to be here in Brisbane today. Es maravilloso estar aquí en Brisbane hoy. I'll apologize for my accent. But I think that's really cool. So Langflow is, it's kind of a nice, easy way to build out flows like this. This is one of the most simplest one you can go. You can chain these things together, get access to all sorts of stuff. We have a talk on MCP later, and Langflow is fun because it kind of both can use MCP servers, but also can turn your flows into MCP servers as well. So LLMs are good at translation. I like that. It's quite cool. So let's talk about what we have on the web. The web speech API. This can give us speech in and speech back out again. We have speech recognition, turning speech into text, and speech synthesis, a word I have to practice before I come and give this talk, because that's way too many S's in one word. But speech recognition has always been kind of incredible. It's really easy to get speech and turn it into text in the browser. It takes this many lines of code. And that will just log things out. We can see it in action, right? If I start that and start talking, we can start seeing words appearing on the screen that I'm saying, and it's accurate. If I stop, so it has kind of like a temporary version, and you can see that in the italics there. That's the kind of sentence that it's working on, and when it then flips to non-italic, it's finalized and decided that. And you could use this to just subtitle your entire life. It's kind of cool. I'm going to stop that now. Flips to non-italic, I said. So close, non-alic. Sure. Speech recognition is so cool, and genuinely, like, not that many lines of code, but also not new, not exciting. Speech synthesis, on the other hand, which I think is useful for this translation application, also really easy. In fact, the browser actually kind of takes a hands-off approach to this and just throws things down to the operating system to speak out. So it's kind of based on your operating system stuff. And so you create yourself a speech synthesis utterance, the worst named API I can think of, and then tell it to speak stuff. And you can choose voices. And this is my fun. This is my absolute best favorite part of this. Let's see if we have audio.
Hello everyone. This is a demo. Hello everyone. Yeah. This is a demo.
So, like, not a bad Australian accent, but let's do something else. Let's all go for beers later. Cool.
Let's all go for beers later.
It's not the most emotive thing, but what I just love is the amount of voices available, at least on Mac OS, because there's some weird ones here. Bad news, for example. What do you think bad news as a voice would sound like? I'm not putting that in the recording just in case, but bad news is super weird. It is.
Let's all go for later.
Yeah, I know. Somebody was like, "This is something we need on every single Apple machine." Good. It's nice to know that there's also good news, which is
let's all go for beers later.
I don't even do it in the same anyway. And that's still not the funniest. It's also not the funniest that there are a lot of grandmas and grandpas. They're not actually that good, so I won't play those for you. The absolute best, there's two that are the best. One is Jester. So if you ever want to feel like you're hanging out with somebody who finds you very amusing the entire time, just put it through Jester. But my absolute favorite, where is it? Bubbles. Yes. In a world where people are like, we can make voices happen just from text on a computer or a web browser, they weren't. We've got bad news. We've got good news. We've got the Jester. What we need to do is make somebody sound as if they put their head in a fish tank. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, sorry. It's nice to know that's there, and that we can have something maybe translate into Spanish and then talk it out in bubbles. The translation really is the bit that we fall short on. We don't have until recently, we do not have a web translation API. You'd have to go and use some kind of server-side thing. Like we could throw off to Langflow on the server, pass it through an LLM and come back again. We don't have that on the web. And so that brings us now to AI on the web, giving us these powers. And the first thing to talk about is the prompt API. It's actually not that long ago. It's not been around for very long, but the engineers on the Chrome team were, experimenting with having a language model live inside of the browser, and exposing that the very simplest as a prompt API, the way we kind of interact with any large language model via prompting. And then allowing people to kind of experiment with that and find out what it does. It's actually I love it when the web platform gets involved in these things because it's super simple to use. You get there's a language model class. You call create on it. You have to wait. This is an asynchronous API because that is, if it's the first time that's ever been run for somebody, it's going to go and download the model. Only the first time though. And what I really like about this is that it's only the first time for any website. That model is downloaded and packed away to be used by anybody else that wants to use this API. It just saves the Chrome installation, I guess, coming with another 2 to 4 gigabyte model with it in the first place. And once you have that model, you can then call model.prompt on it, and it will go and use the language model to do stuff for you. And I have an example of that here in my slides, which I like. So hopefully it's working. We can write a 4-line poem about cats. There we go. Silent pause, graceful leap. Golden eyes that softly peep. Isn't that lovely? That was entirely done within my browser. There are better things we can prompt it. I always like asking it to tell me a joke about Java Script developers. Why do JavaScript developers wear glasses? Because they don't see sharp. That's an actual punchline. It's not used to doing that. Let's try another one. Why did the JavaScript developer get lost? Because they didn't have any callbacks. That doesn't make any sense. Nobody has ever said that large language models are funny, by the way. They're only accidentally funny by coming up with the wrong things. But debugging JavaScript is like being a detective. You spent hours looking for clues, and then you realize you left the browser open. I'm going to have to spend the rest of the day working out why it said that. Cool. But this prompt API is 100% running inside my browser. We are getting language generated from a model that is running inside my browser. We're not using the internet. We're not doing anything else. And that's very powerful because it will work offline. Yeah, absolutely. I would prove that, but we're recording the sessions via Google Meet. And if I go offline, that will all die again. But like this, this is not just for writing jokes about JavaScript developers. We could ask it, for example, reverse string in JavaScript. Generate. And well, this is centrally aligned, but that will give us some code to reverse a string. Split, reverse, join. Lovely. It's even got an example of how to use it. How nice. I wouldn't necessarily use this code to use this model to assist me in coding. But you could, if you are offline, if all you have is a browser, you could build it into this. I think that's cool. There are some things about it that currently make it not easy to run. This is a large language model, so it requires some power behind the machine that you're using. So currently it runs on Windows 10 or 11, Mac OS 13 Plus. It does run on Linux. I think it was coming to Chrome OS. Maybe that's happened, maybe it hasn't. I can't remember. I don't have a Chrome OS device to test with. It does require you to have at least 22 gigabytes of storage space on the device. I think that is just being kind because it is going to download. I think it's around 2 gigabytes. And so basically the Chrome team being like, look, we don't want to fill up your device. And that's cool. I appreciate that. And then it does require more than 4 gigabytes of DRAM, which is the sort of thing that you might not have. So a lot of requirements for it. I'm a bit shocked by that, but it's fine. It works on my machine. It works on many machines. And there is a bit more to it, to the API, because of this, right? We actually have to say, is this model available to run on this device? And so you get that by calling it language models.availability, and that will test the device, check with the device, and see if it doesn't reach those requirements, it will return unavailable, and you can just exit out at that point. It can say downloadable, which means we don't have the model yet, but you could download it. And then there's downloading for when you are downloading it, and available if that model is already there and available for you. And then it's also important, like, again, it's a 2 gigabyte file to download. When you call on language model create, it's going to kick off that download process. You can actually listen for events to notify your user to be like, this is why we haven't done anything yet. We are 2% through this 2 gig download. Just hang on. And that's cool. Like, and that works. In fact, the first time I worked with this, it didn't work, or at least not for me. I blame my own programming, but now it absolutely does. It will show progress and work for you. But this has led to kind of this prompt API kind of went into this early access program where people played around with it and did various things with it. And it kind of led to some problems. The prompt API with a model, specifically Gemini Nano in this case, had some questions from other browsers, like what if we all have different models and prompting them is completely different results from every single one? And that's fine. That's a good question. And so it turned out that as part of this early access program, people were reporting what they were building with this, and that led to the team finding out that there were specific kind of niches that people were falling into. They found that people were using this model, this big model, to do specific things. And so they started building smaller, more focused models, which solved those common problems that people were building. And those problems have resulted today in 6 new APIs: the translator, the language detector, the summarizer, writer, rewriter, and proofreader. They all come with stars, which is good. But the first, a single star, says, hey, this is actually available. It was launched in Chrome 138. And so there are APIs in the browser for translating, detecting language, and summarizing text available in Chrome 138 today. The writer and rewriter models are still in origin trials, and I think the proofreader is still in the early access, so that's kind of sign up for it, download Chrome Canary, make sure you can actually access it and play around with it. The last time I gave this talk, somebody pointed out afterwards that they didn't know what Chrome Canary was. So I will just mention that. It's kind of like a very up-to-date build of Chrome. It releases very often, has the most up-to-date things in it. So if you ever want to try with this new stuff, Chrome Canary is kind of the on-the-edge kind of set stuff. There's the beta, which kind of sits in the middle and is pre kind of release, and then actual Chrome is the one that most users will use. So Chrome Canary is cool for that. But yeah, so we have the translator, language detector, and summarizer available in Chrome today, and I think that's cool. And they all work in a very similar way to that original prompt API, but they're much smaller, which is nice. So you always take a model, take one of these APIs, you call create on it. If it's the first time you're calling that, it's going to download a model, but that's not going to be a 2 GB model this time. In the case of the translator API, we give it a source and target language, and it will give us a model that translates between English and Spanish, in this case. Those models tend to be somewhere between 75 and 85 megabytes, about 80 megabytes, which is not too bad. Not something you want to do on a poor connection, but it's there, and it's pretty quick if you're on a decent connection, right? And so you call create, and it creates the model. And then you call translator.translate, and it will do that for you. I went on holiday to Spain this winter. So this is now running again in my browser. These slides are in the browser. And that's pretty quick. I'm actually quite impressed with that. Like the prompt API took a little time to do some stuff, but that just works. Let's all go for beers and talk about the bubbles voice. Vayamos todos por las cervezas y hablemos de la voz de la burbujas. How about that? I did not know that was the word for bubbles. Cool. So the translator API is there. It works. It's quick, and it's in the browser. Language detector is useful if you are building something which is going to translate things into a user's own language, which you can find out from the kind of browser's existing language settings. But you need to know what you're translating from and to. And so, again, same API called language detector.create, and then you call detector.detect once you have it. And so if we do that, I went on holiday to Spain this winter, pretty sure that's English. Excellent. This is giving us a percentage of like how sure it is about things. So I have noticed that if I say, let's go back and get that text. Yeah. That I reckon it's going to suggest is Spanish, right? Yeah, very sure it's Spanish. Although I did notice that if all my content is beer based, I apologize for that. It's way too early in the morning. But if I ask for a beer in Spanish, it's also like could be Portuguese, probably Spanish, could be Portuguese, or Romanian. Very little chance of it being Romanian, and then undecided. So this language detector is very much like it leans on kind of almost a more traditional machine learning kind of thing, where at the end of the day you get like a prediction basically, but it's there and that's useful. And so I put these things together, all of these APIs that we've seen so far together, into an application that was able to translate things from English to Spanish, Spanish to English, in this application here, which I called the built-in browser-based babelfish, because alliteration. And so if I use the start listening button, it's going to use the the speech to text API to listen. It's going to turn that into text. It's going to pass that to the translation API. And then it's going to speak it back out again in Spanish. I like Monica as a Spanish voice for this. So let's all go for beers later and talk about that weird Bubbles voice.
Vayamos todos por cervezas más tarde y hablemos de esa extraña voz de burbujas.
De burbujas. Excellent. So it works. That's kind of cool. So, and very fast. Yeah, I love it. Like, and it's all happening on the browser. It's all happening in front of me. Almost. We'll get to that in a sec. If I do Spanish, something to say in Spanish. Me fui lost. Yeah. Una cerveza, por favor.
Please.
Okay, you weren't listening. Una cerveza, por favor.
Have a beer, please.
Yeah, okay, there we go. So it's kind of good. It's kind of good. But it's not entirely offline. The web speech API, speech to text, has been around in browsers for a long time, but it has a dirty little secret, at least in Chrome, that it was always sending that audio off to the Google Cloud servers in order to do the speech to text and sending it back. And it's really quick. It's kind of impressive, but it is sending it to a remote server. And so it wouldn't work offline. And there's potentially a privacy issue there. If you weren't aware of that. It's probably not a problem, but it's important to recognize. And like we're talking about an offline translation application, a useful thing to have when you maybe don't have data available to you. So that's what we're trying to avoid here. And so I was really excited earlier in the year at Google I/O, where they announced that this prompt API had graduated from being text only to a multimodal prompt API. It remains in that kind of early access. It's in Chrome Canary. This is not currently available in browsers, but it is cool. It allows you to throw images or audio at this prompt API as well and get stuff out of it. The multimodal prompt API works very similarly to the regular prompt API. You just give it some like expected inputs. If you want to tell it like, look out, we're going to have some audio or images, and then it gets the right model for that. And then rather than just throwing some text at it in the prompt, you can throw so this array of content, text and audio or images kind of set up. And so that works really well. And so I wanted to use the multimodal prompt API to transcribe audio that I was recording via the laptop. And so that actually took me on a journey through a bunch of other APIs. So we have the media recorder API to record audio, the web audio API to take that recorded audio and turn it into an audio buffer, and then the multimodal prompt API. And it works. And so this, if I wasn't recording this on Google Meet, I would turn the internet off and be like, this is offline. But we can't do that, sadly. So this is working, is recording my voice by that media recorder API, and then we'll send it off to get transcribed via the multimodal prompt API. I didn't start recording. So that's what. So there was a button there that said prepare to record. And this is one of those things that if you ever deal with audio in the browser, you have to have a user interaction first. And so when I said we have a multimodal prompt API that expects to receive audio, in order to use it, it requires a click first. And so I didn't think about that. Anyway, now I can start talking and it will be recording me and will eventually translate it.
Ahora puedo empezar a hablar y me estará grabando y eventualmente lo traduciré.
Right, cool. So that so that absolutely worked by taking my microphone, putting it through the media recorder API, recording it, turning it into an audio buffer using the web audio API and passing it to the multimodal prompt API, which transcribed it. It then used the language detector API to work out which language I was talking in, and then the translation API to turn it to the other language and then read it back out in the speech synthesis API. And so in this case, there is this input language thing at the top, but it doesn't work for the this version of that because I can speak to it in Spanish. Ahora puedo empezar a hablar y me estará grabando y eventualmente lo traduciré.
Now I can start talking and it will be recording me and I will eventually translate it.
Woo. Okay, so it's capable of working out which language it is as well, even with my Spanish accent. Cool. And yes, that would work entirely offline, entirely inside the browser. But the model behind this is indeed Gemini Nano, yes. It is installed in the browser when you call on that prompt API language model.create. It will install it at that point, yes. And I want to point out once more that that 2 GB download for a prompt API is only going to happen once by the first person, the first application that requires it. And because there's a lot of like capabilities of being able to run AI in the browser using things like the Hugging Face transformers JS. But like when you do that, you are downloading that model for your application every time. And if every website in the world decided they wanted a language model and they all wanted to download 2 GB, like our phones would eventually explode. And so this happens once, and that's why I like it when the web platform does this. And so there are reasons to do this as well, right? Like there are more powerful models we can run on the server, but like doing stuff inside the browser, it gets, allows us to use the user's processing power in order to run this kind of stuff. So it becomes a lot cheaper and easier to do a whole bunch of things, like translating user-generated content. I like to. There was a function in Twitter that if you were following people that like tweeted in other languages, you could hit translate. It would turn it into your language so you can read it. I don't think that's a thing necessarily in Blue Sky because they don't have as much money as Twitter do, and paying for those translations is quite a lot if a lot of people do it. Especially because there's lots of stuff being created all the time. But if you can do that in the browser in front of somebody, that kind of AI translation is good enough and right there in their browser to do it. And that's really cool. I like the idea of personalized summarization of user reviews. Right? If you look at Amazon right now, you will see on a product page, there's like an AI generated summary of all the reviews. But what if your shop had an idea of your preferences, what you were looking for in a product, and could actually pick out from the reviews important points to you about what you're looking for? That is, very expensive to do at scale, but if you're doing it inside the browser, super cheap. I like the idea of suggesting alt text for image uploads. That should be a thing in every browser to suggest and help people make things more accessible. And the multimodal prompt API can allow us to do that. And then transcribing, translating videos, all of that kind of stuff is very expensive to do on the server and very cheap if you're using somebody else's machine to do it. The biggest, I think, the most important one is absolutely privacy. Like all of this stuff is happening offline inside the browser, and not sending your users' data elsewhere is an absolute. It's a win for everybody. So privacy, always keep that in mind. And that's kind of it. Like now it's your turn. Like there is a lot more of today to go and discover what else is available in the various platforms that we're talking about. But I absolutely encourage you to have a play with these APIs, to grab Canary, turn flags on, and check out the prompt API to see if that's working. I understand that the Edge team at Microsoft have actually done a competing version using their small model Phi. So it's happening in more than one browser. We just need to get Firefox involved and on board with these kind of things to actually turn this into a real standard. So yeah, get out there and experiment with this. Have a great day here. There are a few links there for you, which are kind of useful. Yeah, the source code for this demo is up. I've got a QR code for that, I think, right at the end. It is it's actually not very good code. I apologize for that. I was really making a mess of things, but when you're dealing with brand new APIs, coding assistants don't know about them either. So, and one other thing is that I currently publish an AI newsletter for developers called AI++. It will tell you about it only comes out every couple of weeks, and gives you all the latest news on AI for developers. So if you want to subscribe to that, I'd absolutely love that. And if you subscribe and then unsubscribe, it's like a dagger to my heart. Because I see every single one of them. No, it's fine. If you don't like it, it's fine. But I honestly think it's quite good. I write it. Other than that, yeah, thank you so much for coming to see this talk. Again, my name is Nash. I'm a developer relations engineer working on Langflow, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.